I've been thinking a lot about why play the saxophone. I've been playing for about 10 months now, so I can tell you what a saxophone is and how it works, but then when I think, why am I playing the saxophone, it's a little bit more difficult to answer. I've been playing music for my whole life. I started playing the piano when I was about 4 years old, and then I picked up clarinet when I was in high school. I've also got a little bit of experience with guitar, trumpet and tenor horn, but I don't really play them anymore. Since I was a child, I've always been writing music, whether it's a composition on the piano or a love song that I've written for somebody that I liked in the past. But I wouldn't say that I'm particularly amazing at music. I'm in no way, shape or form a prodigy. I've done grades for piano and for clarinet. I also did A-level music, and I've played in various ensembles over the course of my life, but outside of that, that's kind of it. What I mean to say is I don't feel overly accomplished when it comes to music. I've always felt like I've tried really hard to be the best at something, or I've tried to achieve something and sort of fallen short in most cases. When I went to university when I was 18, I kind of dropped piano and clarinet entirely, and they've never really recovered since then. I can obviously still play piano and clarinet, but never really wanted to, never really seen a reason to, and never had a why. But that all changed when I picked up the saxophone for the first time. In May 2022, my dad and I went to a concert from someone called Nubia Garcia at Band on the Wall in Manchester. We're both really big fans of jazz, and my dad's been playing saxophone for quite a long time on and off, so I thought it'd be a really good idea to go along with him and see what it was all about. I think it's fair to say that I was absolutely blown away. I'd obviously heard saxophone music before, but I'd never seen it live, and I think watching Nubia play alongside her band and just absolutely dominate the stage, it really awakened something inside of me, and I came out of that concert feeling really inspired and wanting to do something with that inspiration. And when I got home, I was maybe a little bit drunk, but I decided to buy myself a saxophone. I think because of my experience with the clarinet, I was able to pick up the saxophone quite quickly, so I was able to sort of put the mouthpiece to my lips and blow, and I guess the sound came out quite easily because I sort of knew how it all worked and came together. I was quite lucky that my dad was there as well, because he has a lot more gear than I do, and he let me borrow his Selmer S90 mouthpiece, and that made a huge difference to, one, how easy it was to play and how much nicer I sounded on it. So right off the bat I had a really nice and reliable mouthpiece to get working on. Thing is, unlike the clarinet, which is really easy to play in the lower register, I found saxophone incredibly difficult, especially below G, so F, E, D, C, B, B flat. They were really hard to sound, and I guess because of the clarinet embouchure that I have, I was just squeezing way too hard and it was too firm and I couldn't get the sound out, and I didn't understand why. However, if I put the octave key down, I could pretty much play anything in sort of the middle register from, I guess, the D up to the F sharp. So it was kind of a sort of switch around, because obviously high notes on the clarinet become more challenging the further up you go, whereas on saxophone it just seemed really natural and really easy to do. And overall, I ended my first ever saxophone practice session after maybe 2 hours. I felt really good about it, and I felt really inspired, and I was ready to go. I don't really know when I got saxophone. Like, it's not like I woke up one day and suddenly I could play. It sort of took time over a number of weeks. I went through a phase that I think most players go through, of wanting to try absolutely everything, every type of saxophone, every brand, model. I wanted to try everything to find that sweet spot, that sweet sound that I could sort of develop, but I guess I learned quite a hard lesson early on, because I spent a lot of money trying a lot of different things and ended up realising none of it really matters, especially not at this point in my saxophone journey. I just need to stick with something and go for it. So my first saxophone was an alto, but then I also tried a tenor, and then I sold my first alto and got a different alto. Didn't really love that, so I sold that alto and got a different alto. Sold the tenor and got a soprano. So I have an alto and a soprano now, but I have a load of other instruments that I've also tried, and I guess at the end of the day I've gone around this cycle and ended up back at the alto. So it's an expensive journey to go on just to end up back where I started. That being said, I feel like I've learned a lot about myself as a player and what I want out of the saxophone. You know, I want something that's really easy, and by that I don't mean something that's easy to play. An alto saxophone's easy to carry around, you can just get it out, stick the neck on and go for it. And soprano's in a sense even easier because it's just one piece of brass, you just pop the mouthpiece on and go. You know, so I know that that's what I want from my instrument, and I know that I'm having a lot of fun with it. I know that alto and soprano is sort of my voice now, you know, because I tried tenor and I didn't love it, and that's completely fine, you know, and you move on and you learn something and you continue, and that's the journey that I've been on, and I guess now I just need to stick with it. I've also tried a lot of different mouthpieces, you know, different brands and different tip openings and different types of barrels, and you know, I've gone through the motions, and I found that the sound that I really want and the thing that's most comfortable for me is having a small tip opening. So, you know, on soprano I have a 1mm tip opening, and on the alto I have a 1.3mm tip opening, which makes it much easier to play, but the quality of the sound that I get is exactly what I want, and I know that's what I want. So, you know, and that's probably going to evolve and develop over time, but for right now, that's exactly what I want. And you know, I guess every musician has to go through it. I'm glad that I went through it and I've sort of got it out the way. The whole gear cycle thing that you go through, you know. I still, you know, get it now where I'm looking at sax.co.uk and I see a mouthpiece and I go, oh, you know, maybe that would make me sound good. And I have to sort of really pull myself back and go, no, you've got a mouthpiece that works for you, stick with it. I think for where I'm at right now, I have an alto, I have a soprano, I have two really nice reliable mouthpieces, and I'm just going with that and I'm finding my sound. A lot of people have said that the saxophone is easier than the clarinet, and I completely disagree. I know I've already touched on it earlier, but I've had a lot more experience with the clarinet and I've been playing it for longer, but I feel like the clarinet's quite easy. It was a long time ago when I first picked it up and I was much younger than I am now, so maybe that's something to do with it, but I found I could get pretty much all the notes in the lower register out immediately, and then it took a matter of weeks to get the you know, above the 12th key break, and I find that that's not necessarily the case with saxophone. I feel like it's taking me a bit longer to really develop my sound and to be able to reliably get every note out of the instrument. Saxophone's a little bit of a different beast for me. It's almost a cross between a clarinet and a trumpet, and I make that distinction because I have played both, and saxophone sort of sits in between the woodwind and the brass family, like right in the middle. For me, I find brass is a little bit blunt, you know, it's tubing, it's conical, it's very, I don't know what the word is, but it's just sort of metal, it's just sheets of metal, and I find that for me sometimes a big challenge is getting that to sound as sweet and as pure as I know a saxophone can sound. I think especially when it's cold, I just sometimes feel like I'm really fighting with the instrument, and it's not the instrument's fault, it's me, and it's me needing to develop and sort of get a bit more consistent. But yeah, sometimes I find it really difficult to get a sound out, particularly in the lower register, and anything below like a D, C, B and B flat, I suppose, right at the bottom of the range, you know, it's 50-50 most of the time whether I'm getting a sound out or not. I think the real challenge for me comes from when I go to play, and by that I mean when I want to perform and I want to sound good, because I can run through scales no problem, I can read music pretty well, you know, but when I actually want to put feeling and dynamics and, you know, real soul into it, I think that's where I'm quite limited, because I guess it's a lack of experience, you know, it's less than a year since I started playing, and I think there's a lot that I need to develop and a lot that I need to work on before I can get there, because obviously saxophone, there are people who devote their whole life to it and they still are learning and they're still picking things up, and I think it's maybe a bit naive of me to think I could be there after 10 months, you know, but it's definitely a development thing, and it's something that I need to focus a bit more on, which is my tone, which is my dynamics, my sound, my control of the air, and the way that I put air through the instrument. I think that's a real challenge at the moment, and something that, you know, I am looking forward to working on and developing. I think one of the biggest hurdles for me is realizing that I'm not going to wake up tomorrow and be able to play like a professional. You know, it's going to take years of work and dedication before I'm even close to that, and you know, I think I'm making really good progress, but I have a very long way to go. And I think now that I've got over that hurdle and that realization, I've been able to have a lot more fun with the instrument. So in January I joined an ensemble called the Saxophone Orchestra in Manchester, and I've been going there for the past few months. Obviously, as I'm based in Manchester and I play the saxophone, it seemed like a logical thing to do, and it was a pretty good decision. The way that the orchestra is structured is it's sort of made up of a load of different people from different backgrounds and at different levels of ability. So, you know, across the range of the saxophone ability scale, you have absolute beginners here, and you have, you know, degree level performers over here, and you know, I'm obviously at the lower end of the spectrum, and you know, I'm still very much a beginner in the way that I play. So, you know, but it's really nice to be surrounded with people from all different ability levels, because it means I have so much that I can learn from people. And you know, even the people who are professional players, they learn something from the beginners as well. And I love that it doesn't matter that I'm not perfect and I'm not nailing every single change and every dynamic, because everybody's sort of in the same boat and everybody's aware of the journey that everybody else is on. You know, I can show up with my saxophone and my music stand, I can sit down and I can play, and for 2 hours it's just really good fun. Every time I go I learn something new, whether it's just getting a bit better at sight reading, or being able to play in time a little bit better, or just, you know, picking up a little tip from someone that I'm sat next to. I think surrounding myself with those individuals, you know, people who are playing at a higher standard than me or playing at the same standard, it's allowed me to just develop the way that I play and pick up new things and share things that I've learned on my journey. And it's made the whole process of playing and learning a bit more, I guess it's a bit more rewarding for me now. I've also started taking lessons as well, which has been really helpful, because you know, I was self-taught for about 8 months of my saxophone playing journey, so I picked up some not so good habits, and I think having lessons has been really helpful because it's allowed me to sort of start to push away those bad habits and invite in some new and stronger habits and things that are going to make me a better player in the long term. And I think, you know, 8 months of playing something a little bit wrong is not ideal, but it's better than doing that for 2 years and then having a really hard time putting those habits down. I think since I started having lessons as well, I've just become a much better player technically. You know, I don't lift my fingers up from the buttons as much, my embouchure's a little bit more tight and a little bit firmer, and it's sort of the way that it needs to be for the saxophone mouthpiece. I just think over the past few months my playing has really taken off, and I think it is because, you know, I'm playing in ensembles now and I'm also having lessons, and I'm just having much more focused support with my playing, and I think that's really paid off. So, why do I play the saxophone? Because it's fun. When I started playing piano at 4, it's because my parents told me that I was doing it, you know, and I'm incredibly grateful that they did, because it's made me a much better musician overall, but I never really had the why, you know. I couldn't say, why am I doing piano? You know, it's just I was doing it, and then I was learning, and then I was playing, and that was that. When I picked up clarinet, sure, I sort of chose clarinet as my second instrument, but I had grades and I had my A-levels and I had my performances to do, and I was just really focusing on getting them right and playing correctly and doing everything that I needed to do, and the why was because I wanted to pass my exams. With saxophone, I picked it up because I was inspired, because I saw something and I saw someone playing and I thought, wow, I really, really want to be able to do that. You know, nobody was telling me to play saxophone, there was no upcoming performance or exam that I had to do that I was really stressed about. You know, I just really wanted to do it. So in less than a year I've managed to pick up an entirely new instrument that's, you know, related to something I've played before, but it's a new experience for me. I've managed to join an ensemble, I've been taking lessons, and a couple of weeks ago I did my first ever live performance at an open mic night, which, you know, was really scary, but at the same time the rush of playing something in front of people, you know, whether it had mistakes in it or not, it was just a really nice feeling. And you know, in the space of 10 months I went from being inspired by someone playing live to doing it myself, albeit on a much smaller scale, but it was a really sensational feeling getting up there and playing. So if you're ever wondering whether or not you should do something, or if you're sat there thinking, oh, I wouldn't be able to do that, or I'll never be good enough. Just do it and take the step and follow your passion, because, you know, I could have gone away from that concert and never thought about playing saxophone again, and that would have been that. But I took the step and I took the risk and I did it, and it's probably one of the best things I've ever done for myself. And that's why I play saxophone.